are Space Grove, team name Simusite, and I am Joseph Stewart, EE major, third year.
My name is Erin Crow. I'm a second year aerospace PhD student.
Abraham, I am a mechanical engineering student master.
I'm
Avery.
I'm Alexis. I'm a fourth year BME.
I'm Avery. I'm a fourth year astrophysics student.
I'm Uni, first year master student in material science.
So our team thinks it's important to always start off with discussing who Space Grove is. So Space Grove is a commercial real estate and platform company operating and developing purpose-built innovation hubs and communities for space, defense, and advanced technologies. So what is Space Grove's mission? Who are they? So at their core, to reiterate, they're a flexible real estate platform for space and technology companies. More specifically, they aim to support the growth of these companies within Florida space growth. However, we still aim to host various diverse tenants, such as the government sector, general industry, and as well as international partners. So some key characteristics to discuss, specifically when it comes to space allocation. We've seen tenants need anywhere from 300 square feet to 30,000 square feet. These spaces are custom built per tenant, and there's no standardized layouts. However, tenant needs still need to change over time. For example, like if that 30,000 square foot tenant no longer wants to operate within your facility, now you need to be able to expand, relocate, or be able to turn over that real estate rather quickly.
And then over the course of the semester, we had to do a beneficiary discovery. So we have interviewed CEOs, engineers, project managers, academic space researchers, and innovation hub directors. And something that we have learned is that startups are constantly evolving and adapting. We have most definitely seen this working with Space Grove over the semester. And a pattern that has emerged is that human performance affects overall performance a great deal. And transparency and communication are key. And then since Space Grove is a startup company, they are constantly evolving and adapting, and so our problem statement has changed throughout the course of the semester, almost weekly since the midterm, or up until the midterm. And so we started with kind of like simulating environments for the space sector because they felt like there was no efficient way to have an environment for testing in the space sector. So we were going to design a mission-informed tool and environment to help with exploring decisions, trade-offs, and consequences that they may face during testing. And now we have kind of switched into a client management and coordination plan between Space Grove and their tenants within the Innovation Hub. So since they are going to have multiple different groups working with them, like international embassies or academia, they are going to need a way to coordinate between these groups to allow effective collaboration and communication, and also to ensure that all groups receive the necessary resources that they need to succeed.
So this slide shows our initial understanding of the problem. We thought space school needs support with human performance and deployment efficiency. So our value proposition focus on speed, communication, and adaptable layout. However, as we continue interviewing our stakeholders, we realize this actually is not matching with space school's real need. So this pushes us to focus on our final MNC and VPC, which is enabled to be smooth to the tenants onboarding and also understanding tenants' requirements. So our value propositions focus on faster deployment and adjustable layout, so that will match space school workflow and business goals.
So over the next few slides, I'm going to discuss general project evolution in stages. So for our initial stage, or our initial approach rather, is where we were more design focused. So we thought that we were going to be designing each individual space. So for example, we're going to design the equipment, the layout, where like each individual desk would be, a lamp would be, wire management, just to overall support human factors. However, so we were treating it as a facility design challenge. However, we quickly realized we needed a shift in perspective. This was actually a business and more of a design issue because Space Grove operates on the business side of organizing tenants and space. So we needed to understand a few things: how tenants are selected, how space is allocated, and how decisions are made. So this leads us to our solution. We took the aforementioned issues and we said, okay, we need a system. We developed a questionnaire to help us collect tenant needs, as well as some AutoCAD layouts to give us a better visualization of space. Not necessarily just for each individual tenant that is able to see the site, but for example, if somebody is overseas and can't actually get a good understanding from pictures of what Space Grove is going to look like, it may help them determine if Space Grove's space is a good place for them. So this enables flexible space allocation, tenant customization, as well as scalable decision making.
Talking about the users, initially we thought that our main user or primary user is the startup themselves, but we realized that throughout the semester that our primary user is the Space Grove, and actually the government and industry, and also the international partners. So we shift throughout the semester to know that our secondary beneficiary are the tenants and the startups, and the third beneficiary are the organization and how to bring in teams together.
Okay, so getting back to our solution, more specifically about the tenant questionnaire. If you want to scan this QR code, it gives you a link to the questionnaire if you want to look through the questions while I kind of explain it. But so we decided to go with the questionnaire because when we were talking to Dr. Patton, she was saying that they really need to understand what the tenants want when they come to Space Grove. So she needed a very broad range of questions that the tenants can answer, because sometimes the questions may vary if it's a startup company versus an international embassy. So they needed a lot of questions to kind of customize it for each tenant. And she really emphasized that the more Space Grove can learn and know about what the tenants need while they're using Space Grove space, the better, so that they can better accommodate them. So for our solution, like I said, we created a Google form questionnaire, and we were able to categorize all the questions into, I believe, 11 different sections. And this will just help Space Grove better understand what the tenant wants while they're working with Space Grove. And we also did the Google form so that Space Grove could just use it as a template, duplicate it, and then kind of customize the questions for each tenant as they come in.
So then after Space Grove would distribute this kind of questionnaire to their tenants, they could find out what their needs are. Then they could use this AutoCAD portion to actually show them virtually what the spaces look like. So for those that don't know, AutoCAD is just a CAD software used for like designing parts or commonly like different layouts or buildings. So me and Avery, after doing interviews with like both Dr. Patton and these Innovation Hub directors and companies in the startup sector, we asked them like what kind of spaces would they like to see modeled virtually so that they could figure out if they would want to work there. And we broke it up into 4 categories. So I made spaces that were collaboration spaces focused on work, and then collaboration spaces focused on leisure. So we made 3 sizes of each one, just going off like standard office kind of layouts. So here, this is an example of what a work-based collaboration space could look like. They really wanted a priority on places for teams internally and between teams at Space Grove to work together, collaborate in this innovation hub. And then on the bottom right is the more leisure-based collaboration space, ensuring that like Space Grove is both pushing like work and innovation, but also like a more welcoming environment, like balancing that work-life balance.
And then in tandem with the spaces that Alexis created, I created a shared resources room and private offices. So the shared resources room would be a place for different teams to come in and work together on projects, and it has work tables, storage cabinets, and places for tools if needed. And then we have our private office spaces, which is just a private place for teams to meet privately and take calls or meetings.
And here's just what all of those collaboration spaces look like. So we kind of, for each group, we made like a small, medium, and large layout. just using like basic office supplies that you would commonly find in a space. And our biggest priority with this was that given Space Grove is still finalizing their physical location, we wanted them to just kind of have a very like basic design layout right now, something that they could go in and alter as they start actually acquiring spaces and resources.
These are just more designs, and the offices have 4 sizes instead of 3 to accommodate for a private office.
And then here's just a quick video I took of messing around with the AutoCAD software. So this was just an online repository I found of different office pieces. And here just shows how you could kind of manipulate the space. Space Grove would be able to go in, show this to their customers so that they could see this is what the space would actually look like that they're operating in. And as they grow as a company, as they change, just using the tools at the top, they could easily move things around, change dimensions, as just they're growing. It's very adaptable.
So combining both of these solutions, we have a general timeline that Space Grove could use to onboard new tenants. So like Alexis said, the questionnaire would be sent out to future tenants before they come and tour this space, and that just helps Space Grove better understand what their needs are. Then the AutoCAD will be used to virtually model the different spaces based on those responses. And then if the tenant is able to come and tour the space, they could come and tour the facility and see the different kind of spaces Space Grove has to offer. As I know Dr. Patton also mentioned, having other amenities such as a restaurant, bar, other stuff like that, so they can kind of see the layout of the whole facility.
About the cost analysis, we have 2 main primary costs that will be in our system, which are the labor of the AutoCAD expertise and the cost of the software itself. The labor work will be estimated $35 per hour, and the software cost will be around 200 for a year. 2,000.
And this is a lesson learned while developing our system. First, flexibility is essential. Space Grove operates in a fast-changing environment, so our solutions have to adapt as their vision grows. Second, visualization drives understanding. Many tenants, especially international ones, couldn't physically tour the facility, so our AutoCAD layout actually helped them have a better understanding of the space, which improves transparency and speeds up the decision making. And finally, the data must guide decisions. The questionnaire will help Space Grove collect actionable information from every tenant. So this reduces guesswork and will have a better onboarding process.
And then for future directions we see for this project, given that as Space Grove kind of expands and establishes themselves in the sector, pilot testing would need to be conducted either on maybe student-based design teams or startups that they're already talking to ensure that the tools are actually adaptable and able to be used. Refinement would be needed for the client management profile as a whole, converting maybe the Google form into an actual website, and going along with that, expanding the AutoCAD repository we have right now. Right now we have, I believe, 13 rooms, but obviously as Space Grove grows, they might need to edit the ones that already exist or add new ones. And then another idea we had for a future development was currently the idea is that Space Grove would take these questionnaire responses and then they would choose based off of the resources they have who would get what, but you could automate that process and develop some sort of decision-making framework to do that work for them. Thank you.
Dr. Patton, we'd love some of your feedback. I got 2 minutes on the clock for you.
All I'm gonna say is wow. Wow. You guys need to give yourselves a round of applause. I look at this as if I'm speaking to someone that is trying to sell me a product, and I was able to articulate exactly what I needed, and over the course of several weeks, judging by the fact that we are a startup, we are very, very fluid. And literally, I was on a call with them one time, and I had a catastrophe happen while I was on the phone, and I had to share with them that I was a little bit sidetracked because of it. and they were able to adapt exactly the way that I needed them to. I wish that I had people like that in my life right now, Dr. Pollard, honestly. I articulate what I need, and it's delivered. I've already shared with them that they are all hired. So I'm on board. Let's go. Let's do this together. Let me just wrap this up, though. One of the things that they struggled with because of the fluidity is that we are not a model that exists in the way that we exist. And so they had to figure out a solution that they can't just Google or ChatGPT. And they did it, and they did it well. Instead of them creating an entire solution, which didn't make sense because it's so fluid, I encouraged them to create an MVP. They created 2 MVPs. I don't know how they did that in 2 weeks, but they did it. So another kudos to you guys. You were adaptable, you were flexible. We had a great conversation on the phone. I feel like I cried and laughed at the same time because I was definitely subdued by some news. But I think at the end of the day, they just did a stand-up job. I'm so excited for you guys, and none of them have a background in any of this, which is it just blows my mind that they were able to adapt and be flexible, which is what the real world really looks like. So I'd love for you to send me the final PowerPoint because I am traveling and I can't see the QR code at this time. And I've also shared with them that I'd like to showcase the project in our newsletter, giving credit to Dr. Pollard and what you've created within reason. So please make sure that you run that through Dr. Pollard before you send it off to me to make sure that it clears her level. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to be using this at Space Grove. I appreciate you.
Thank you.